conversations, we're going to be talking about mental health. So mental health is obviously a huge subject, which we could spend all of this session speaking about. It's a theme that we really have tried to weave throughout all of the sessions, but I just really wanted to dedicate some specific time thinking about it separately from everything else that we have so far. As Emma discussed at the start of tonight, Emma and I are not mental health practitioners, and so we have taken advice from the relevant organisations such as Samaritans and Young Minds. So there is a very wide spectrum of mental health difficulties that young people may face, and also why they may face them. On top of this, there are also varying levels of severity of mental health. So I wanted to start by saying that if you believe that your child may be struggling with a severe mental health difficulty, please do take them to seek help from the GP or another health service as soon as possible. If this feels intimidating for your child, which it may do for many reasons, try and explore other avenues of support for them. For example, would they be happy to speak to someone at school or college about how they're feeling, or maybe a more kind of voluntary mental health service? So looking at statistics, we know that 1 in 8 young people have at least one diagnosable mental health disorder. And it is believed that around 75% of all mental health problems are established by the age of 18. So when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about anything really, from low mood to anxiety, eating disorders, personality disorders, self-harm related behaviours, and the list really does go on and on and on. Each mental health problem comes with its own set of signs and symptoms, but the biggest one for you to look out for as parents, which is likely to occur in most mental health conditions, is a change in behaviour. So is your child going out less, for example? Maybe they're seeing their friends less. Maybe they're staying in bed much longer. You might also want to look out for some physical signs. So thinking about things like marks on their body, extreme weight loss or extreme weight gain, taking less pride in themselves, and maybe things like showering less, for example. I think it's really important to acknowledge that because we see our young people every single day, it can be difficult to pick up on these signs. Because often signs or symptoms relating to mental health are often quite gradual, or there could be many other reasons that they're not seeing their friends, for example. They might have an exam coming up that they need to spend more time revising for, or they might be spending more time in bed simply because they're teenagers. But remember, as parents, you know them better than anyone else, and the main message here is to always trust your gut. So we spoke about safety planning quite a lot over the past couple of sessions, and mental health is another area that would really benefit from a safety plan. So firstly, if your young person discloses that they are thinking about or have a plan to take their own life, always take this seriously. Never downplay it by saying things like, oh, you wouldn't do that, would you? Or don't be silly. Phrases like this will make it less likely for your young person to speak to you about this again and could heighten their risk. So speak to them about it and always call 999 in an emergency. Think about objects that you might have around your house that could really heighten their risk. And that could heighten their risk in terms of their physical safety or also their emotional safety. So, for example, are they having or acting on thoughts of self-harm? If they are, think about how easily accessible things like razors or knives are to them. If they're really struggling with their body image, or you have concerns about their eating habits, for example, think about things like mirrors or scales in your house. Could you remove them, for example? Or maybe if you've got lots of mirrors, could you think about doing something nice, like putting the positive messages on the mirrors? If they're having thoughts about taking an overdose and you don't already, try and consider putting a lock on your medicine cabinet. We know that there are age restrictions on buying things like knives and razors and medications. So this is something that within the UK especially, you can try and use to your advantage as their parents. So there are so many theories about mental health. There's theories about how mental health difficulties arrive. There's theories about what we can do to help them. And mental health throughout the years has been extensively researched. But I just wanted to quickly talk you through this simple model, as potentially it could be a starting point to open up conversations about mental health or about well-being with your young person. So this model on your screen now is called the hot cross bun model, so quite nice and easy to remember. The hot cross bun model shows how our thoughts, our behaviour, our emotions, and our physical bodily sensations are all connected to one another. So an example of this could be a teenager who experiences anxiety, for example. They might not receive any messages from their friends after school one day. So this could be the trigger, which would kind of be at the top of the model here. So the trigger is they don't have any messages received from their friends after school. So this could result in them thinking something like, well, clearly no one likes me. Clearly I'm no fun to be around. And over time, if they continue to have similar thoughts like this could result in them feeling things that they don't want to go out anymore, for example. Or maybe they're invited to parties, but they get a bit nervous about leaving the house. They could also experience bodily sensations such as feeling sick, for example, if they have to leave the house, or shaky legs when they're around other people. And the emotions are likely to experience, the emotions, that they are likely to experience could be things like sadness, low mood, worry, anxiety, and loneliness. So that's just one example there, but hopefully that kind of illustrates how all of our kind of thoughts, our behaviour, our bodily sensations, and our emotions are all so closely linked. Now, we have very little control over the emotions that our young people feel. We also have very little control over their bodily sensations or even their behaviour, but we can, to some extent, help to shape their thoughts. So try and really pick up on conversations with your young person when they mention what they're thinking. So if they said something like, Carly gave me a bit of a funny look today, I don't think she likes me anymore. Could you challenge that? Could you say something like, well, does that necessarily mean that she doesn't like you, or might she have some stuff going on? Try and challenge any negative thoughts or opinions that they have and really help them to kind of reframe them. So I'm not suggesting that this is a magic wand, but helping them to modify their thoughts will have some impact on their feelings, their physical sensations, and of course, their behaviour. We've spoken about conversations between you and your young person throughout all 3 of these sessions. We know that we don't have magic wands, but our magic wand could be communication. It's the thing that really, really can transform our young people's lives. Talking about mental health as well is also incredibly important as it helps to reduce that stigma. There's a bit of a myth that if we talk about mental health, it will do more harm than good, but actually it really is quite the opposite. What we do know about mental health is that generally the onset of mental health problems is gradual, but help is usually sought after once that young person has hit rock bottom. What we want to try and do is really avoid rock bottom. So we want to try and get in there early and have those conversations from the very start as soon as we start noticing any signs and having concerns as parents. Now, I am very, very aware that some of you might be listening to this feeling like you've potentially already hit rock bottom with your young person. If that is the case, please do seek professional help for your young person. Mental health problems are never solved overnight and sometimes require years of therapy. So if this sounds like your family, or maybe you're on a waiting list for help, do still try everything that we spoke about. Do try going back to those basics, keeping those conversations open and gently reminding your teenager that you're there to support them, but also reminding them that small things that they can do to help themselves will definitely support with their well-being. We can never pour from an empty cup, and neither can our teenagers. So as we spoke about in previous weeks, do try and encourage self-care. Think journaling, think lighting a candle, going out on their bike, whatever it is that brings your young person joy, encourage it at all times.